Tammy Zywicki was a 21-year-old college student from Naperville, Illinois, when her life was tragically taken in August of 1992. What initially appeared to be a routine disappearance would soon evolve into one of the most chilling and perplexing cases in Illinois history. On August 23, 1992, Tammy was driving alone from her home in Illinois to college in Iowa. She had just dropped off her younger brother at a camp in Michigan and was making the long drive back to school. Her car, a 1992 Subaru, was found abandoned on the side of I-80 in rural Illinois. Her belongings were inside, including her purse, keys, and other personal items, but Tammy was nowhere to be found. The discovery of her car raised alarms, but investigators had no immediate leads. It wasn't until a few days later, when her body was found in a nearby creek, that authorities realized the extent of the tragedy. Tammy had been murdered, and her death would become the focus of an intense investigation. Her body was found partially submerged in the creek and her clothes had been removed, suggesting a possible sexual assault. The cause of death was determined to be blunt force trauma, but there were no immediate suspects. Investigators were left with few clues, and the case went cold. At first, there were theories about Tammy's disappearance. Some suspected a random carjacking or a hitchhiker gone wrong, but no solid evidence emerged to support these theories. However, over time, investigators discovered a series of connections that pointed to a much more sinister possibility. Tammy's murder was eerily similar to several other unsolved killings in the region, leading detectives to believe that a serial killer might be involved. The case was initially treated as a missing persons investigation, but it soon became clear that Tammy was the victim of a violent crime. Authorities found that Tammy's car had been stopped along the interstate for hours before she disappeared. This led investigators to believe that the killer may have been lying in wait for an opportunity to strike. Evidence also suggested that Tammy's killer had been familiar with the area, making the case all the more perplexing. In 1993, the FBI entered the investigation, linking Tammy's murder to a series of similar crimes along Interstate 80. The FBI was already investigating a possible serial killer known as the I-80 killer, responsible for the murders of several young women traveling along the interstate in the months prior to Tammy's death. Despite the similarities, no solid connection was made between the cases at the time. Then in 2002, a new development changed the course of the investigation. DNA evidence was collected from Tammy's body and linked to a suspect named Harold Dowdy, a man with a history of violent offenses. Dowdy had been incarcerated for unrelated crimes at the time, and when DNA was compared to evidence from Tammy's case, it appeared to match. However, Dowdy denied any involvement in the crime, and his DNA evidence did not conclusively tie him to Tammy's murder. Despite the evidence, Harold Dowdy was never formally charged with the crime. The case remained unsolved for years, and Tammy's family continued to search for justice. The case grew colder, but the memory of Tammy Zywicki's tragic death never faded from the public's mind. Over the years, several other theories have emerged, including the possibility of a different serial killer operating in the area, with investigators pointing to other unsolved cases from the same time period. Yet, despite all the advances in DNA testing and forensic science, Tammy's murder remains a mystery to this day. In 2019, the Illinois State Police announced that they would re-examine the case using new DNA technology. The hope was that recent advancements in forensic science might finally provide the answers that had eluded investigators for decades. However, as of now, the case remains unsolved, and Tammy's killer is still unknown. Tammy's family continues to hold out hope that the truth will eventually come to light. Her parents have worked tirelessly to raise awareness of her case, and her legacy lives on through their efforts to push for justice. Tammy's story remains a heartbreaking reminder of the fragility of life and the devastating impact that unsolved crimes have on families and communities.